Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Joanna Hynd and I work for the McArthur Public Library in Biddeford, Maine. Thank you for joining us. This is the fourth part of a four-part series about journaling. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about logging as journaling and keeping a log, a little bit about privacy concerns and how secret should I keep my secret journal, or should I keep a secret journal? Where should I keep a secret journal? But before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about our community archive. We have a COVID-19 community archive, which helps us document life in Biddeford during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many libraries across the nation are doing the same. We are looking for stories, images, oral history, interviews, video format, podcast format, Word document, poems, different things talking about your experience. This archive is a joint project of the Biddeford Cultural and Heritage Center, the Biddeford Historical Society, and the McArthur Public Library. There is a tutorial from our very own librarian, Renee, which you can click on. If you scroll down our website, you will see the Tell Your Story brackets. You click there, and you should see the tutorial and also where you click to submit. If it's in a little bit of a weird format, you can email back and forth and figure something out. So let's get into keeping a log as a journal. Basically, historically, right now we are looking back at the 1918 pandemic and different documents from that time to figure out what people's experiences were like and what worked and what didn't work in terms of face coverings. And so it's very vital to record some of this, and that's another way to keep a journal. Maybe keep a journal as advice to future generations, future people experiencing similar things to today. When I visited Colonial Williamsburg, it was interesting to see that at the old printing shop, the most requested types of books were actually blank books to record their crop prices and who owed who money and when their crops went in, different things of that nature, and also recording family histories, genealogy, that kind of thing. So it's interesting today to find myself in the virtual world recording all of the different prices of bugs and sea creatures in Animal Crossing, which is a video game through Nintendo. It recently got a shout out from John Oliver's From Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's kind of swept the market if you are of the millennial generation or younger, although many generations play it. So, and I was looking up recently to see if anyone was making Animal Crossing journals on YouTube, and they are. Yep, there's washi tape, there is different things, like even a boarding pass for going to your first Animal Crossing island. So it's interesting to see that people are still keeping logs and recording their turnip prices. So yeah, it's interesting to find the day-to-day and different things that kind of sneak into logs and journals. I remember hearing about a cat's paw print being found in a scribe or a monk's journal, and there was a little note saying, oh, this is where our helpful cat interrupted. You never know what's going to be interesting to future generations. And I think that's an interesting prompt. Writing to future generations, deciding who in a future generation you're going to write to, that could be a good prompt. Is it someone who's related to you? Are you giving advice to your future great-grandniece or great-granddaughter? Are you giving advice to someone you don't know, someone who's not a relative? I remember that being a prompt and thinking, what would I want to discover from a great-grandmother if I found found a log or a journal in an attic? And then I had the great good fortune to find a log that belonged to my great-grandmother, and I was a little bit struck by how dull it was. There was a lot about dentist appointments and when to go shopping and things like that. But there was also a note that said FDR was elected for the 4th time today, which I thought was pretty interesting to see that that was significant enough to make it into this day-to-day log of activities. So if you are stuck and you can't figure out how to write your way into a journal, you can always try logging some things, day-to-day things. Bullet journals are great for this. And you can always look up on YouTube different tips for how to start one. They can get very elaborate very quickly, so I would say don't feel intimidated if yours isn't written with perfect calligraphy and perfect lines. My log of Animal Crossing things is not very fancy, but it's very helpful. So yeah, try looking up online prompts too. Try timing yourself. If you feel like you couldn't even write for 5 minutes because there's too much going on, try writing for 3 minutes and see what happens. And then give yourself permission to keep writing if you find you have more time or more energy than you thought you would have. And feel free to take a prompt and go where your mind wants to go. I found a webinar the other day that was having us write a prompt about your first table that you remember. What happened at that table? Describe the table that you sit at now. What do you hope will happen at this table? And I didn't get too far into the prompt, but I started to write. My first table was a very worn, bright red cherry table with a red with fake stain, shiny with polyurethane, with 2 leaves on either side. As we grew, the leaves came out more and more until it looked odd with them put away. It used to be just me, my mom, and my sister, and then my 2 brothers came along, and eventually we upgraded to a new used table, and my sister has that table now. Right now I sit at a coffee table with board games stored inside. This is not the table that I intend to write my great work at, but it is possible that will happen anyway. This is the major room of the house where I frequent the most. I usually write in bed or on a couch corner with my diary propped up on my knees or my laptop. Only when I write with dip pen do I take the time to open my writer's desk and assume the position of writer. And it was interesting to see what other people wrote because they went so much further than me, talking about how their table connected them to the world and how they were helping the world through writing and joining us all together. And I thought that was very sweet. And I wish that my mind had gone that way. So you could try the table prompt and see where it takes you. Going back to what I was discussing in the last podcast about why we read diaries, my mom's takeaway was we read diaries to discover secrets and family secrets. I don't know how I feel about secrets, and this is where it gets into a little bit of the privacy concerns with keeping a journal. There are many very creative ways to hide a journal, to keep a journal. I find it's a little inhibiting because if you feel inspired to write and you can't carry your journal with you and write while you're, in a waiting room at the DMV, you might find yourself writing less and less because you feel like you have to sit down and be in a specific, place to write, or be close to a journal that is maybe too heavy or has a special place that you don't want to take it too far away from. In that case, maybe you could get a journal with a lock. This might just be my takeaway from years of writing, but in my experience, I can't make people even want to read my diary. They find it so boring, and I think we are the most fascinating to ourselves. But that might just be my experience, and it's possible that I am just either very dull, or possibly it's just my personality where I'm a bit of an open book and people tend to already know a lot of things about me. So, some write with the intention of burning or destroying, and I think that is completely valid. But in my personal experience, I once destroyed a series of entries after discovering that a crush I had when I was much younger didn't return my affections, and I wish I'd known that the passion and the feelings that you experience in a moment do fade away. And as embarrassing as it may be to find a very fiery, impassioned entry years later, it's also interesting to see how you can change your mind over time. And I often regret finding those pages that they're so scribbled out I can't make out any of what I wrote. So maybe remember to forgive yourself and remember that you can change your mind and that reflection is good. You might not feel so angry years later, and it may give you some perspective to be able to look back on it. So don't forget to be kind to yourself when you're writing, and don't be afraid to look up different journaling prompts and start writing, get inspired, and change directions, because you may be surprised where it takes you. Thank you so much for joining me for all of these journaling podcasts. It's been a delight to share with you some of my thoughts, and I hope to do some more podcasting soon. I have a couple of ideas. If you're interested in hearing about my thoughts on some books, please let me know in the comments. I have quite a collection of different things that I've read over the years, and I would love to share my thoughts. So, happy writing, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.